compound interest is one of the most beautiful things in the world, right? Unless it's going against you.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's one of the situations where he's exactly right on that concept is how you be able to take, I'm talking to, Mr. Cashflow here, right? The more money you take and you keep it's not as much about how much you have in revenue, it's about how much you keep. That's the secret.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Construction MF'ers podcast. I'm Scott Peper, the CEO and co-founder of Mobilization Funding. I have a great guest with me today, Kyle Medley with Thomas Financial. Kyle and I are going to talk about retirement plans, most specifically corporate retirement plans. Now, not personal, but I want you to think about it as a business owner. When do you offer different types of benefits? And one of those important benefits is corporate financial 401k planning and financial planning. And Kyle is an expert in that. And today he is going to share with you some great insights and information that I can't wait to talk about. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. So let's jump right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself, why you're passionate about corporate retirement planning, and then we're going to dive into what people need to know.
Yeah, I think, let's go back to all of my working career. So I was fortunate enough to play professional baseball for a very short amount of time and then started coaching collegiately. So that was a lot of fun. Met a wonderful woman, and she said, this coaching baseball world might not be the most conducive lifestyle for a family. So I had to pick one, and I think I chose the right one. But nonetheless, from there I started in the insurance world, and I was doing insurance, micro 401ks, and commercial insurance, mainly for car dealerships, metal manufacturers, construction, a lot of blue collar business.
Okay.
After that, I think what I learned throughout both of those kind of processes were I'm a logical thinker and a pretty altruistic kind of guy. And I recognized when I was doing insurance, majority of the time from an insurance standpoint, I wasn't paying the claims out, right? The math on the insurance side is the opposite. Where the flip side on the 401k, if I could just have the employees, they're inside those corporate plans to make small behavior modifications, and they continue to live healthily and continue to live on through their working career, the statistics meaning I'm almost 100% certain to improve their quality of life. So that's kind of how I started, essentially only focusing on the corporate retirement plan space.
Well, one of the things I liked about you that I noticed right away is when you and I first met, you had talked a little bit about that. And the way you framed it was as there's problems to be solved and there's solutions. And sometimes there's an angle where corporate, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you just insurance plans, and you were talking about they don't want to pay out. The goal is not to pay out, but you need it. Well, corporate retirement plan is your own money, your own stuff, and it's meant to be paid out and does. And so you had a feeling that you were attaching more towards like a fulfillment and a purpose that you could see your whole body language change when you start talking about it. Even if you're looking at you right now, you're talking about it, you're already smiling. You're like, yeah, you got it. And that fulfillment feeling. But where do you think you got that part of you from? How did that come about?
I grew up in a very small town, very blue collar area in the middle of Kentucky. The main industry is the distillery business there. So you've got the majority of the business is blue collar workers. And so there are a lot of larger organizations and you're continuing to go in and save and you're doing what you can do for your family. But there's a lot of people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do after they retire. So that was kind of what I learned is all right, for 30 years, you're going to go out and you're going to, trade your dollars for paychecks or whatever it may be, or hours, et cetera. And then you want to enjoy the afterward for that. Mm-hmm. And so that was what I was noticing in my area was there's a lot of people that aren't just educated enough to be able to recognize if I make this small change, or maybe the employer could maybe make this small change, because I do think all employers do have their best interest of the employees out. But how do you have that symbiotic relationship?
Yeah.
To get that through.
So the majority of our audience on this show is going to be in construction and other businesses. And they're probably typically small business owners being folks that anywhere from 10 employees to maybe less than 100, yep. Right? And they do have either retirement plans, or they're about to have retirement plans, or they'd like to tweak their retirement plan, or at best they have one because they thought they needed one, but there was not a ton of thought put into it. So knowing that, what is the couple, 2 or 3 things right now that you think, I'm a business owner sitting at home listening to this podcast, like I need to know, or I need to at least know about my current plan, or I need to be thinking about a plan I want to put forward?
Yeah, so there's 2 pieces to that. I'll unpack that individually. One of those who have that plan, right? That I'll say you're in that secondary group, so you're probably 30, 40. You're on the other end of that higher end of employee scale, right? What generally happens, just understand the genesis of how the 401k generally started, right? Is the business owner probably had a personal financial advisor. That personal financial advisor, the guy says, "Hey, I'm starting to create a plan. What do I need to do?" Right? I'm outgrowing my current structure of small business. What do I do? They went to the financial advisor and says, "Can you do this?" And I think probably one of the biggest things for an existing plan to know is that there are 300,000 financial advisors in the world. Less than 5% are corporate retirement plan specialists. So what you're doing when you have a non-specialist is very similar to having going to your dentist and saying, "Hey, I got a heart problem. Can you do open heart surgery on me?" Can you? Maybe. But do they? Do you want them to do that on a consistent basis? You should have a personal financial advisor if you're a business owner, right? Because you have different things outside of that. So that's the first thing I would think I would want to know if I was an existing plan. Second thing is, when you put it in, what you've probably done is you've got it in, you've checked the box, and you moved on. So, I always think about levers in your businesses. How do you establish and use one lever to maybe pull another business? And so, one of the things that go on with health insurance, right? How does that get folded into the organization? We're having people right now that are looking at their corporate retirement plan as an offset for their health insurance. As health insurance is rising, you're having a significant cost that you're having to handle for your employees. Well, maybe you adjust that and you turn that down a little bit, but then you redeploy some of that capital into your corporate retirement plan. So Gotcha. For the existing people, that's what I would say, to make sure that you're doing that and use it as a productivity tool. Like, it is a tool if you use it. Unless you don't use it, then it's just there.
So if I'm a business owner with a current retirement plan, and you're right, I put it in place with my benefits instructor, right? We'll call that, quote unquote. Yeah. It could come from a couple different places. But now, like, what problems am I seeing with the retirement plan? Or I'm not seeing at all because I'm just not paying attention that I really should be focused on?
Yeah, so
for me or my employees, I guess, or all of them.
Yeah, so 2 pieces, right? One would be if your employees are not attacking that, right, and taking that retention, that's okay, right? So there's 2 sides to the 401k, right? Is one, it's owner driven, and the owner driven is like, hey, listen, I'm let's go down market. I'm a 15, 20 employee place, and I'm not really interested in scaling to that 100 place, right? Yeah. And I'm tired of buying a truck, and I'm tired of buying an asset that's a depreciating asset. Well, sometimes you can have a plan that if your employees are not overly involved in it, and that's just the part of the business. In the construction industry, we know that, right? There's going to be people that are driven by compensation, and all they're going to do is chase the next dollar.
True.
All right. So then if you play that game, well, what happens, right? You're going to increase your workers' comp, right? You're going to have people who aren't retiring when they should be. You're going to have increased health insurance because you have an aging workforce. Maybe you can figure out a way to establish that and say, all right, how can I get my employees involved or not, either or? And if they get involved, that's just going to win-win with all the other things, right? Gotcha. If they don't get involved, that's unfortunate for them, but by providing a benefit for that, for them, you as an owner are going to massively benefit when it comes tax season. I just did a plan recently where you got a guy, a 15-person plan. Let's say they had a tax bill of $150,000 at the end of the year. The owners, there were 3 owners, they could get 70 cents on every dollar that they put in their 401k plan for the owners. So that's pretty
good. Yeah. So it's a tool not only to help your employees, but it's also a tool to offset what might be taxes that you're going to have. And if you can, instead of paying taxes that you owe, you can pay it into your retirement plan to help your team and your employees. It's not an either or. Sometimes there's a and for the you get a benefit and a savings for you that you're all benefiting your team and your employees and even yourselves.
Yeah, I think everybody would rather pay themselves than the government.
Yeah.
So try to
As little as possible.
right. And so by doing that, you can really have that benefit where and then where you're if you're a business owner and and you do have a personal financial advisor, they're all going to talk about having three buckets, right? A pre-tax, an after-tax bucket, and some type of Roth bucket, etc. You can have all three, but you can use the vehicle, which is the business, to help you really supercharge that from a business owner standpoint.
See, one of the things I like you just said about there is that if I'm a business owner. And look, most of our folks are in construction. So a lot of times business owners think, you know what, these are things I just need to have, and they just keep moving. And so they set it up and they're just like, yeah, bolting on. I got a lot of employees now. I've asked for a 401k plan. By the way, I want to have a 401k plan now too myself as a business owner. So let me get this going. But it's not something that we're highly focused on because we don't know enough about it. We don't know that anything more sometimes when we're setting it up, especially that it's just for 401k planning personally. We don't think of it as a tool for our corporate business. We don't think of it as a tax opportunity. We don't think of it as an added benefit for the team and employees, but also from a tax perspective for them. Talk to me a little bit about if from just a business owner perspective, not the benefits to the employee or myself for retirement planning, which is clear. I think everybody can see that. But what can a good, well-structured corporate retirement plan do for you as a business owner?
Yeah, so think about it from a personal standpoint versus a corporate retirement plan. Personal standpoint, you're only going to have from a pre-tax bucket, you're going to have to get to an IRA. And an IRA is only going to give you $6,500 or $7,500 that you can put in. If you're making some good money, you might not even have access to a Roth IRA. Right.
Okay.
Well, the 401k, you can put up to $22,000 away. And if you're over 50, another $7,500. So you can almost double what you would put in your own personal account. If you have a vessel inside your corporate account, it's the same concept. It's just an extra $20,000 to $30,000 that you're going to be able to put away. Now it gets even more fun when you know that a 401k has the ability to have a Roth inside of it. So now some of those highly compensated business owners who don't even have access to Roth, they could put $30,000 away in a Roth account, right? Gains, dividends, all those things are no longer tax free as they grow. So you're talking about a big, significant change from having it in your own little private world when you just have access to it in your company vessel.
So, Kyle, when you're out there, what does a typical client look like for you? Like, so if I'm an owner, I'm trying to think of like, okay, when should I talk to Kyle? When do I really need a corporate tax specialist? What is your typical client? Where are they at in their journey? Who are they?
So you've got really the two groups, right? You have that 10 to 20 employee group that are starting a plan, right? Those I have a lot of conversations with those, especially with the new tax credits this year. Up to $1,000 per employee to offset taxes for companies to offer a match. So a lot of those 15, 20 employees who haven't had one, that are kicking around, do I do health insurance? Do I not do health insurance? Do I decide not to offer it because my employees would maybe get it better in the marketplace? Whatever it may be. That's a group. And then the next group is that 100 and under down, which is now I've put it in X amount of years ago. I haven't thought about it. And then one of the reasons, go back to the circle over there, is one of the reasons you don't think about it a lot is because you're not thinking about what the embedded costs are. So a lot of 401ks have a lot, our industry is horrible in the fact that there's a lot very opaque cost. And so when you're a business owner and you're looking at your balance sheet, right? You're going from top down. That 401k number, outside the employer contribution number, right? We know the costs for that's an employee benefit, but nobody does anything for free, right? Those costs are almost always embedded. And when they are embedded, you're not focusing on those. And where it kind of goes back to the existing plans, where I think you should know is that you're a steward of your employees' money because they're the ones that are paying for that. right? So that's where that next group that I was talking about is that 50 to 100 place that have put it in, that haven't thought about it. And they go, oh man, the Department of Labor is saying, I should probably take a benchmark of this because it's actually not, it's kind of my money because I'm providing it for the employees, but how much goes to their retirement is net of costs that are embedded in the plan.
That's right.
And so if you don't know what those net of costs are, it behooves you as a fiduciary, as an owner of the business, to have the best net for your employees, so that every dollar that they're putting away is going to them and not in leakage.
Yeah. So you know what? You make a great point there. I read a book that Tony Robbins wrote once, and I'm trying to blank. It might have been Unshakable that it was in, I think.
Yeah.
It was one of his first 2 books. I'll find it. But anyway, Tony Robbins definitely wrote the book. And one of the things he talked about specifically in there is, as you grow towards retirement, the one killer of all retirement plans is the fees that are charged: load fees, service fees, admin fees. And he said it doesn't sound like a lot because it's only 1 or 2%. But you know what? 1 or 2% when you're hoping to grow your plan 10%, which would be great, or 12 or 15, might be 20 or 30%.
Compound interest is one of the most beautiful things in the world, right? Unless it's going against you.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's one of the situations where, he's exactly right on that concept is how you be able to take, I'm talking to, Mr. Cashflow here, right? The more money you take and you keep it's not as much about how much you have in revenue. It's about how much you keep. That's the secret.
That's right. And so pulling all that money out, if you don't realize that, you're offered this benefit to your team, your benefit to your employees, benefit to yourself, but you don't have the right corporate plan structured. It's not very transparent. If anything, it's more opaque. And so then a good specialist will be able to tell you, hey, here's the right plan. You're going to be able to keep, 97.5% of the dollars that you guys put into this instead of only 80%. If it increases, these are what the models will look like. These are the buckets you should choose. These are the funds. These are the rates. These are the things. That way you can actually keep more of your money. Because the whole principle in that Tony Robbins book was you can grow, and you can have great years, but you actually don't get to keep all the money, and therefore you don't really get what you had. And over a 10 or 20 year period, it was significant. It was like 50% difference in money. Like you could have a couple $100,000, instead you only have 50% of a couple $100,000.
It's like revenue with no margin,
yeah.
Right? So that's exactly right. I think that is probably one of the most important things. And like you said, I think with what the difference in the corporate specialist versus the somebody who's doing the personal financial advisor, both of them can offer you a tool. The difference though is, if you're not trained on how to use that screwdriver, you're going to start using it as a hammer.
Yeah. And you made a point too. I don't think correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not a either or. You can have a corporate retirement specialist and your financial advisor.
You should.
Yeah. So you don't need to swap them out. And I think that's one of the cool things when you and I talked the first time that I realized that I would lean hard into that. And I want to make sure everybody listening to this knows that this is an adjunct to what you're doing. A lot of times the worst thing that a business owner wants to do is think about, oh, how do I swap my insurance? That's my buddy, or how do I pull my financial advisor off? That's my buddy. This is more of an adjunct to that. So you can really be specialized in this one format of benefit, which is your corporate retirement.
Let the experts be experts in everything, right? As your business, right? I mean, there are other people who claim to be able to do what you're doing because they're throwing it under an umbrella. But the value proposition of what you do is because it's very specific and very disciplined. And so I don't know why you wouldn't do that with every other fashion of your business as well. You probably are actually in other businesses. You don't ask somebody, your guy who sells your equipment to sell your phone system.
Right. Well, it's like anything. You're a business owner. You don't know all the things you're supposed to know, and that's part of being in business. I'm the same way in our business. I reach out to try to find the specialists, the things I need information on. And I think anyone listening to a podcast like this is probably of like-minded things. So they're looking to learn, looking to benefit. So I think this is very helpful to know.
That's where I think our connection, created was, let's just help people. right? Let's first help people and the business owner know. And the best part to think about minding your job is when you're a business owner, you're only, unfortunately and fortunately, only able to work inside of your business, right? Where you and I are working with everybody else's business that are like them.
Right.
So how can we help them in whatever it may be? And then when it's time for them to need our disciplines and our skill, then great. Right.
Yeah.
But I think, the point of this podcast, right, in itself is because you're wanting to help people with things that you're not as disciplined, is your, expertise. So if somebody's coming to this, they're already wanting to know, all right, how can I be better at let me know what I don't know. And, I think that's the first question, number one. Right.
Totally is. So now we've talked about the good of corporate retirement planning. Let's talk about the things you need to know as a business owner, because there is some risk. If you don't manage it properly, there's certainly risk associated to, as a business owner, not taking care of what you're supposed to from your 401k plans. So let's talk about that.
There's two sides, right? I don't want to be too fear-based because I think, one, I'm going to assume that everybody does what's in the best interest of employees, right? So if we take that assumption, then the idea is just you need to make sure you know what you don't know, and then you also don't need to ask your barber if you need a haircut, right? So that's the first thing I would just kind of go walk side. But then the second thing is if you're not using that tool, right, the way you want to, that you're actually just missing out, right? So just like I talked about screwdriver earlier. Can you use a screwdriver as a hammer? Yeah. Is it going to be efficient? No. Right. So one of the things I think, if you're not using it well, and you're having a situation where you're trusting on somebody who doesn't know how to use it that well, right, is I think one of the crises in the construction industry is you've got an aging workforce, right, and the retention and attraction of those employees.
Yeah,
and we talked about that a little bit earlier with how do we attract those employees that want, that are focusing on stability versus compensation, because you're always going to lose the compensation game to somebody. Right. But one of the things you got to think about is what happens when your good labor force is 30, 40, and they're creeping up in their 50s, and you're not offering that. Right, you're not offering that option. Well, what are they going to do? Then this goes back to the retention and attraction. They're going to say, "Oh no, I'm behind." Me personally, I'm behind in saving for retirement. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to some other organization. The quickest way to get sped up is to have a company that's going to provide a match, because my dollar now goes to an extra dollar further if they're matching it. So now you've got this situation where you may have an aging workforce and they're talented and they're skilled, but because you didn't offer it or because they weren't there, now they're saying, well, I love the benefits that we provide here, and this place is great, culturally fit, but I've got to go catch up. And if I'm going to catch up, I got to go somewhere that's going to help me catch up. And so I think that's, to me, one of the bigger risks of if you're just turning your employee, turnover, because, it's super expensive. What happens if that turnover is there and it's the ones that are the most talented and that you've already trained them?
That's right. Are there any regulatory things that a business owner needs to pay attention to as it relates to management of your retirement plan? Like, can they, I've heard some horror stories of people getting in trouble by not managing funds correctly or not filling out proper paperwork. And can you help dispel some of those?
Yeah. So if you think about it, it's really broken into three buckets. One, you don't know what you don't know. And, the 401k is uniquely governed by two governmental industries. One, it's the IRS, because it's dealing with qualification of taxes, right? Okay. But it's also an employee benefit, so it's the Department of Labor. So you have two junctions that are working together.
They can be too intimidating forces.
I would suggest you don't get frustrated with either, right? Get either on your naughty list. One, you need to know what you don't know. So, having an actual process, I think the Department of Labor always uses it as this. How do you go about determining that the services provided are commensurate with the fees charged? I would probably want to know that answer. Right. And the correct answer would not be, well, I asked my person and they said I was good.
I knew you were good. I was good. I'm good. Okay. That's not a defense necessarily.
Yeah. The second thing is, I think you're responsible for more than you think. And nobody reads that 158-page, document that they sign. So know what you don't know, or find somebody who can tell you, hey, this is where you could be, where you've delegated things, and where this is where you haven't delegated things. So you know what you don't know. So you say, okay, I didn't think I was responsible for that. How can I delegate it? Or, a cost benefit analysis is that it's not worth, delegating. I can handle that in house.
Right.
So that would be the second thing. And then delegate what you can, right? Because if you're a business owner, you're really good at doing your business. So give that time and allocation to what you're really good at, and then try to allocate or pass off some of the cost and time to not have to worry about that learning curve yourself.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, delegate out the pieces that are really task oriented as it relates to the management of it, but make sure you have a good system in place for owning the key pieces that you're responsible for.
That and constantly know what you do, like try to work to know what you don't know, right? So that you can, just like in any part of business, if I can figure out forecasting, right? I'm talking right here. If I can forecast out, then it's going to be a lot easier. What's that famous saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right.
I'd much rather, if I'm in my business, the last thing I want to do is take something that is what I consider as a non-revenue operating thing, and all of a sudden it comes back up, and now I go, oh man, I didn't take the time to know this, so now it's costing me.
Now you're getting hurt. That's a good segue, forecasting wise, into the future. So let's talk about what is the future of corporate retirement planning, health benefits, not health benefits, but just corporate retirement planning, benefits, Social Security, where things are moving to in the industry. What are some of the things that people need to know or should know or we're trying to get they need to get their arms around now? That's going to be in their future.
So I think one of the things you can think about is how the labor force has changed over the last 50 years, and that will tell you a lot about where you think it's going to go. Well, first of all, pensions, right? They're gone. Okay? Especially in the private world, pensions aren't there anymore. And as such, that means you're going to have employees that are participating on their own retirement. Okay, well then behaviorally, a lot of people don't do that. We know most of America is living paycheck to paycheck. Right. Well, then they get to their retirement and they don't have enough Social Security. That's another a whole ball of wax. So the government is going to say, I don't want to spend a lot of money on this problem, right? This problem was generally solved in the previous years with companies and corporate worlds of pensions. Now the problem as pensions have gone away, that problem has now been put on the employee. Unfortunately, with the employee, because of all the financial stresses that we all live with, how do you strike that balance? And so I think the government, which is why the tax credits and all those things, it's just a fiscal concept. They're going to want to make sure to incentivize and structure the employee's well-being after retirement on the employer to some way, right? So I think you're going to see that's where the state IRA mandates are coming in, things like that. You're going to see a big push, whether it be carrots or sticks, I think, to figure out how to get the masses of America to have retirement savings, because the government doesn't want to pay for those either, right? So I think you're going to see a balance of that.
Interesting. Well, Kyle, what things have I not asked you that I should have that people need to know?
One thing I would say is use the resources that you have available to you, right? So Research One, obviously I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And I think one of the things that I use literally every day, that if somebody I'll go back to my insurance brain. Everybody says commercial insurance is very confusing. And it can be, but if you actually take the time to read the policy, it's very clear. It's a contract. You know exactly what it says. We will pay for this and we won't pay for that, right? So the Department of Labor has a resource called Meeting Your Fiduciary Responsibilities, and I use it every single day in my job. And it's a 12-page document. And if I was a business owner, you could read that and you could immediately educate yourself on and helping that curb that know what you don't know.
And so how do you find that? Department of Labor.
The Department of Labor website has it. Meeting Your Fiduciary Responsibilities.
Okay. Department of Labor, Meeting Your Fiduciary Responsibilities, 12-page summary. That's like my perfect kind of thing. Great summary. And then you can extract whatever you need to know out of the rest of the contracts if you want to dive deeper.
That's exactly right.
That's good. That's great advice. Where else can we find you? How do we find Thomas Financial? What someone says, you know what, this was awesome information and they want to reach out. Can you work with anyone across the country? And
Yeah.
How do I find you?
I actually like that. It's, again, the reason I'm actually here is because our target market is very symbiotic. So in that scenario, you can reach out to me at my office website, thomasfinancial.com. You've got my email, kmedley@thomasfinancial.com, and LinkedIn. So yeah, I'm using that pretty awesome.
We'll include all of your stuff in the show notes. There'll be clicks. We'll include the links and everything for everyone to be able to get in touch with Kyle. Man, I really appreciate you coming, dude. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And
Sure.
I'm excited. Been excited. I've been watching you for a while. Your ability to help people just go through business is hard, right? Running a business is hard, and your persistence to help business owners be better versions of themselves. It's just going to help everybody involved. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome, man. I really appreciate you saying that. It's very kind and sweet. It is what we're trying to do, and I appreciate you saying that and recognizing that. And I know our audience here is going to get a lot from what you shared today. And so, folks, support Thomas. So, folks, support Kyle. He's got a lot of great tools and information. You can find more by talking to him individually. I couldn't resist bringing him on the show because it was just too easy. The information he gave me in our short meeting and a couple phone calls that we had just made me want to invite him on the show and talk to you all. So you've been watching the Construction MF'ers podcast. If you like this, if you please share it. If you found any value, also share it. Give it to someone that you know. Let people know. That's how we spread the show. And until next time, God bless you all.